she's placed in his 12th house of deception, which means spreading lies. For example, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. That's my favorite part. The people that live there. His cadence would be so cute if he wasn't so vile. This is Saturn, girl. And we're about to have one of the most important elections of our lifetimes, and quite possibly in American history. Our very lives are in the balance. Well, at least mine is. So I had to make a video with my astrological predictions for the 2024 US presidential election. We are living through a decisive, destructive, and potentially perilous period in American history, and quite possibly world history. That's right, this election affects the whole damn planet. On the Democratic ticket, we have Kamala Harris. And on the Republican ticket, we have Donald John Trump. They each represent wildly different visions for the future of the United States. On the one hand, Kamala Harris represents a more inclusive vision for America, while on the other, Donald John Trump is running on a platform of demonizing immigrants and trans people. Yeah, this election affects every American, but people in marginalized communities may face existential consequences, depending on who wins. So, who's gonna win? Well, in this video, we're going to explore what the astrology says about each candidate's chances for winning. And I'm going to give you my final prediction for who will win the 2024 US presidential election. We'll look at Kamala's and Trump's charts, as well as that of the election itself, to see if we can divine the answer to who will be the next president of the United States. So let's take a look at the candidates, shall we? How about we start with Donald Trump's chart? One of the first things that may pop out at you is that he has a very heavy 12th house. That includes Venus, his 10th house ruler of reputation and life direction. We frequently see this in people who are perceived as villains, or who do in fact have a bad reputation. This also indicates someone working behind the scenes. And he was known for using intimidation and deception in business deals behind closed doors, which earned him a reputation of ruthlessness. He also has Mercury, his 11th house ruler of popularity and friends, in the 12th house, indicating that a lot of people do not like him. He was even unpopular as a real estate mogul in New York, pissing off both politicians and residents with his self-aggrandizing development plans. But he has the Sun, his first house ruler of self, conjunct his North Node in the 11th house, and trine Jupiter, the planet of luck and success. These placements indicate fame, and he has been quite successful, although he owes a lot of that to his daddy. Mars rules Trump's 4th house of the father, and is placed in Leo in his 1st house, indicating that his dad was a powerful, selfish, and narcissistic man. However, he was also the biggest influence in Trump's life. Trump himself has said this repeatedly, and that his dad taught him to detest weakness and to only value one thing: winning! Was his dad Charlie Sheen or something? Trump also has a Leo Mars conjunct his ascendant, which makes him very aggressive and competitive, and extremely into himself. I have Mars trine my ascendant, and believe me, my ego could eclipse the sun. I also think of Leo Mars sort of like Emilio Estevez in The Breakfast Club. Remember that? He played the jock whose dad basically told him all the same stuff that Trump's dad did. You gotta win, Andrew! Be a winner! We don't tolerate losers in this house! In fact, Trump came out on stage during the 2016 Republican National Convention To queens, we are the champions. He literally walked out on the line, no time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world. Sorry for that. It's like he's still trying to get his daddy's approval from beyond the grave. Ooh. This combination of both fame and infamy has made him a formidable force in American politics. Venus also rules his third house of communication, and she's placed in his 12th house of deception, which means spreading lies. For example, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets of the people that live there. That's my favorite part. The people that live there. His cadence would be so cute if he wasn't so vile. He also falsely accused Democrats of rigging the 2020 presidential election, which was proven to be false multiple times over, and that they abort babies after birth, which doesn't happen. That's called murder. And that they're kidnapping your children from public schools and taking them to get sex change surgeries, which also does not happen. In fact, gender-affirming surgeries for minors are exceedingly rare and never happen without parental consent. The other thing is that he's a full moon baby, which means he has something to prove. But how about Kamala? What does her chart say about her? Well, sort of like Trump, she has her 10th house ruler, which in this case is Jupiter, in her 12th house of isolation and imprisonment. During her tenure as vice president, the Biden administration relegated Kamala Harris to working behind the scenes and keeping her out of the public eye. However, the 12th house also rules prisoners, and Harris started out her career as a prosecutor, putting people in prison. She also vehemently opposed the death penalty and promoted the Back on Track program in California, which sought to reduce the amount of repeat nonviolent offenders in prison. It offered them educational and job assistance programs to help integrate them back into society. The 12th house also rules intoxication, so it's not surprising that she also got a bad reputation for prosecuting more nonviolent drug offenders than her predecessor. However, under Kamala's watch as Attorney General, less of those people actually went to prison. However, she did have a checkered career as Attorney General. She walked a fine line between progressivism and being tough on crime. Her straddling of both sides of the political divide in California was likely due to her political aspirations. She's continued to pivot to the right on issues like immigration, and she's even abandoned Medicare for all, one of the most popular policies among Americans. You see, she's a Libra, and Libras often try to be all things to all people. I mean, if you want a second opinion, just ask a Libra. They'll tell you exactly what you want to hear. However, like Trump, she's also a full moon baby. And remember, that means she has something to prove. What she really has going for her, though, is Mars in her 3rd house of communication. This means she can be tenacious and aggressive while speaking, debating, or interrogating. In fact, she was also known for being quite tough as a senator while questioning witnesses during committee hearings. She famously put the pressure on then Supreme Court Justice nominee Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearings. We also saw a bit of this during her presidential debate with Donald Trump and in her recent interview on Fox News with Bret Baier. But what does the timing have to say about these candidates? Who has the best astrological conditions to win the presidency? For this, we need to quickly look at the transits, progressions, and zodiacal releasing of each candidate. And then we're going to see what the United States chart itself has to tell us about all this. What I first see here in terms of transits is that Saturn is touring his 8th house of losses, which could indicate losing money, or perhaps someone close to him, or even the election. Mars will also be separating from a conjunction with his natal Venus, his 10th house ruler of achievement and recognition. So this could be quite bad for him. Mars is his most malefic planet, so that could indicate him losing the election as well. In fact, it looks like he and his cronies are anticipating that, and therefore they're gearing up for some intense legal battles to contest a potential Kamala victory. But what do his progressions say? What trips me out about his progressions is that Trump's progressed ascendant went into Scorpio just a couple of weeks before the January 6th coup attempt. This indicates violence behind the scenes. That's pretty wild, but let's look at his zodiacal releasing. So what first jumps out at me is that he enters a level 1 peak period in Leo in April of 2025. That's his first house. This is a big deal. It's one of the most important and active periods of his entire life. However, he also has Mars, his most malefic planet, in Leo, which could indicate accidents, conflicts, violence, or who knows, maybe he could be the next Jefferson Davis. In fact, Trump was in a level 2 Aquarius period when January 6th went down, and that was not good for him. Both Aquarius and Leo are fixed signs, and the fixed signs represent his peak periods in zodiacal releasing. Now, I'm not going to explain what zodiacal releasing is here, except to mention that it's a very ancient timing technique that has been used with incredible accuracy to determine future events in someone's life. For election day, though, he will be at the end of his level 2 Aries period, which is opposite Jupiter, his most benefic or good planet. So he does get something lucky or advantageous out of the election. And on top of that, Jupiter will be conjunct Trump's North Node on election day, increasing his chances for luck. So it's a mixed bag. But the astrological conditions in Trump's chart suggest that he will probably lose. However, with some very unpleasant consequences. But I wonder if Kamala's situation looks any better. Actually, it does. For transits, Jupiter, her 10th house ruler of achievement and recognition, will be conjunct her ascendant and her North Node in Gemini, which is very auspicious and not only confers good luck, but increases it. Saturn is also going through her 10th house, which can be difficult for career and reputation, but it also puts us in a new life direction and opens up new opportunities, at least in my experience. Kamala is also in a first house perfection year, which is auspicious for her election chances. In terms of progressions, though, she's still riding the wave of her progressed full moon, which was exact last October, but we still see the effects manifesting for the following year. This often represents a high point in someone's life and can improve her chances. In addition, she's currently in a level 1 peak period in Pisces, which is opposite her natal Venus, her most benefic planet because she was born at night. This is a big deal, and it looks pretty good for her. She's also in a level 2 Gemini period that makes a square to Venus, which is another good sign. And on election day, she'll be in a level 4 Sagittarius period, which also makes a square to her Venus. Once again, a very good thing. Okay, but what about the chart of the United States? What does it have to say? For transits, the first thing that I see is Jupiter, the ruler of the first house of self, which will be making a conjunction with the US's natal Mars. And this can indicate things getting out of hand. I often see this correlate with explosions or expanding conflicts. Meanwhile, Saturn is going through the 4th house, which brings a struggle with the past, with the homeland, with patriotism, and with the national heritage. And we've already seen about 90 years of progress overturned by the Supreme Court and the far right. Mars will also be approaching a conjunction with the North Node, also indicating violence of some sort, at least to me, or the potential for violent conflict erupting around the time of the election. In terms of progressions, The US just had its progressed new moon in March of 2024. This was around the climax of the primary elections. Now, progressed full moons are sort of like starting over from scratch, which could be both a good or a bad sign for things to come. Does this mean the end of American democracy or its revival? For zodiacal releasing, the US is currently in a level 1 Gemini period, which contains Mars. This is typically not very good for the US since it has a day chart. Furthermore, we will be in a level 2 Sagittarius period, which is opposite Mars. Again, not a good sign. But this leads to a level 2 Capricorn period in June of 2025, which is opposite both Jupiter and Venus, the two good planets or benefics. But this is also in a square to Saturn, which brings additional challenges. However, Venus and Jupiter are indicating these can be overcome. However, the chart for election day itself has some ominous transits. The primary one that worries me is that Mars will almost be exactly opposite Pluto on the day of the election. I see this transit often correlate with violence. I really believe there will be political violence on or after Election Day. Indeed, many poll workers have quit after being threatened with violence by Trump supporters. We also had a solar eclipse in Libra at the beginning of October, conjunct the US's Saturn in the 11th house of popularity and supporters, and not too far from the midheaven. So again, this could be damaging to the US, either financially or in terms of further isolating itself from the international community. What also concerns me are the even bigger transits going on right now and in 2025, especially around the summer. For example, Saturn will join Neptune in a conjunction around next July and August. This transit has brought us the dissolution of empires. For example, in Russia, Saturn was conjunct Neptune during the Russian Revolution, the death of Stalin, and the fall of the Berlin Wall. This could mean big upheavals for the United States as well next year. But what worries me even more is Uranus entering Gemini, also next summer. Uranus was in Gemini during the American Revolution, and each time Uranus has returned to Gemini, the US faces existential threats. The first Uranus return ignited the US Civil War. The second Uranus return brought us the US involvement in World War II and the rise of fascism. Will we see fascism, World War, Civil War, or maybe all three wrapped up together in an unholy series of unfortunate events? Well, I'll tell you my predictions in just a moment, but you really need to go back and watch my video analyzing the astrology behind a possible second American Civil War. I promise you, you'll learn a lot of history, and it's pretty entertaining. But the elephant in the room is Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto was in Aquarius during the time of the American and French revolutions. You see, this transit often represents violent upheavals in power relations, often where established structures are overturned and new ones emerge. For example, this happened while King Henry VIII declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England, which effectively eroded the power of the Catholic Church over European monarchs. So what are my predictions? Well, I'll cut to the chase. I'm predicting a Kamala Harris victory. Her chances of winning look better than Trump's, but not by much. If she wins, it may save American democracy, but it will also enrage the far right. They have already been lawyering up to contest a Kamala win. And if legal battles make it all the way to the Supreme Court, it could trigger a constitutional crisis, which would not be fun and not enjoyable for anybody. You may even remember how George W. Bush was fraudulently elected by the Supreme Court in the 2000 election. But the thing I'm most worried about is localized political violence. Yeah, I think a Kamala win could spark civil conflicts, similar to the way Abraham Lincoln's election did in 1860. However, it wouldn't be nearly as big and not nearly as organized. To me, This is the best scenario, but it still looks pretty bleak. On a positive note, though, after alarming transits like Uranus and Gemini, the United States often enters a period of progress and greater inclusion. For example, after the Civil War, we entered into the Progressive Era, which itself was a reaction to the terrible inequality of the Gilded Age. And following the 1940s, we had the most prosperous time in American history, largely due to the progressive policies of the New Deal. I think we'll see positive progressive developments as Uranus starts to leave Gemini. But that doesn't mean it's all doom and gloom before then. I know I sound quite pessimistic. I'm Saturn girl. But remember, our ancestors faced such times in the past. During bleak periods, we still have to attend to our daily lives, take care of our children, put food on the table, and try to find some modicum of enjoyment in life. We don't have a choice in the matter. The wheels of fate are already turning. I always say that fate is just what happens to us. We have no control over it. Destiny, on the other hand, is how we respond to fate and the challenges that befall us. 99% of life is fated, and we can't change it. I made that number up, but you feel me. The 1% that matters, though, is the choices we make as things seem to crumble all around us. In fact, this is what astrology teaches us. To be poised and prepared to face whatever comes our way. For, as the famous 2nd century ancient astrologer Vedius Valens once wrote, those who have trained themselves in the prediction of the future and the truth, having acquired a soul that is free and not enslaved, do not think highly of fortune, and do not devote themselves to hope, nor are they afraid of death. But instead they live their lives undaunted by disturbance, by training their souls to be confident, and neither rejoice excessively in the case of the good, nor become depressed in the case of bad, but instead are content with whatever is present. Those who do not desire the impossible are capable of bearing that which is preordained through their own self-mastery, and being estranged from all pleasure and praise, they become established soldiers of fate. Training day begins today. Do your duty. And by that I mean your dharma. Thank you for watching. Like this video and subscribe to my channel. And make sure to click the bell when you subscribe so that you get notified when my new videos drop. And I do the best readings. It's science. You can book through my website, saturngirl.org. And if you can't afford a reading right now, come to my live streams and get one for free. But you have to be subscribed to get notified about them. And please consider tipping me. It helps me make such wonderful content. You can give through super thanks below or become a member of my channel. And remember, I love you. You're beautiful. And have a wonderful, whatever it is you're having.